L-A-N-A.
Lana.
A, just an L.
I got asked for the first.
And
Just.
before, I'm gonna do you two about a couple of.
You wanna do this? Oh, yeah, right here.
Nice notebook, bro. Thanks, dude.
Just like write your name.
There are a few people who I need to get your WhatsApp account.
And we're passing around this big thing, you're
You
writing
did
a few things
Yeah.
about yourself on
I
the
have the app.
list.
I emailed you.
Did I?
Super tall.
That's with you.
Sounds like I'm
Then in Rosie and Sarah and Maria, will you guys and Amelia, will you guys turn your screens on?
Are you guys rooming together? Yeah. I know, he's super pissed off.
I don't know why you're not in there.
I saw the text group chat, like anyone able to like switch.
Lauren, Gabby, and Jaden.
I think.
Okay. And there's a few people who haven't responded because of the if not all of you are on the WhatsApp yet, but Darren and Laura sent out the list for lunch for dinner for your first night. And give me a second. I just have to-
All my shit, sorry.
I don't know what. Wait, Betsy, what are we supposed to do on this?
Just writing down a few things about your
Me? Like you wrote me like super tall, like. Okay.
Okay. Carolyn, do you want meat goring, which is fried noodles, chicken? Or
I did that.
according to Darren, as of 8 AM this morning, you had it.
I did it on the drive here.
Okay,
You're good. And then you're Glick, right? You're Glick. And the two of you, and it's the GG. I gotta find a way.
I'm fine just going by Gab. Like it's just a shorter.
Okay, did you? You are not yet. Yeah, I need you on to do the WhatsApp thing, but you also have to choose your.
Here's a pen.
Choose your meal. So meat goreng, which is fried noodle.
Right down here,
Nasi
down.
is fried rice.
Have
Meat goreng veggie.
you seen them? Nope.
No, I guess that one. But we can tell. Let me tell Darren.
No, help her.
Let me tell Darren. Sorry. Logistics Darren asked me to do.
Did you all have a good weekend?
Yeah, how's yours?
Did you all have a good weekend? Oh.
Okay, so you wanted meat goreng, veggie, no way.
They're doing
might wanna
a few
check.
food logistics for like 2 seconds.
They are really.
You guys on the
independent,
screen,
sorry.
all, you all have one.
I made a baby cry.
Good thing or bad thing? Okay, and then dessert.
Yeah.
So a lot of work.
Carolyn.
Caroline, you weren't here last week.
No,
Okay, who else? And
I had to work. It was so good.
I'm super cool.
I am.
Can't say that. I'm cool.
Yeah, not here, but
I love.
I was at one point. In some Bali, like at my
Giovanni.
town. It wasn't like beach lifeguard or anything, but a tiny little.
Jane is not here.
That's
And
so
then-
At least 8 people. But, no, but we just, I mean, like in the room, And usually we do this as an in the room exercise, but that's okay. So how many of you did your, let's start with the bias test. Who did the bias test? Okay, awesome. How many of you on screen did the bias test? Everybody, nice work, you guys. How many of you found that to be an interesting exercise? Kind of not. I find it slightly irritating at some points. And there is some question, how many of you felt that the tests themselves had accuracy? Yeah?
No.
A couple of them had some accuracy. Okay, so what I'd like you guys to do, and I'm gonna split you guys into groups in Zoom, is I want you to get with a partner, someone near you, next to you. And I want you to talk just for a moment about your results. And then I want you to talk about what biases you think you have going into Bali. Okay, so just turn to a partner, and it can be 2 or 3 of you.
Really.
Radiant.
Or you can do
Yeah.
I think my results were pretty good. I just did like all the least controversial ones, like was I'm not gonna. I don't want to see my bias between them. I think I said first quiz told me that I had a moderate automatic preference for Christianity. What was yours? What was yours?
No association.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Like paragraph. In a situation. Because said that I have a moderate automatic association for Americans with European Americans. Asian. I don't really know.
Wow.
But I'm
No
saying.
us Asians.
I'm pretty sure majority is.
You're
Pretty sure majority of.
you're-
Pretty sure. I think I was like 40%, because I mean, yeah, but
You're European.
I don't know, you guys are. Sorry.
You're racist.
Go on 3 second one. Go on 3 second.
Second time. Wrong association.
I agree.
Archer.
Like, if I were
Second. What if for women isn't
Okay, I didn't say that. I didn't say it could be.
Yeah, but
there's
like,
more. More.
wrong
There's more in
association.
liberal.
That means you like failed like every.
You're probably.
You're
Call it brainwashed, especially the body kid, it was like, but it's good to know.
So I also read a bit of the marine biology.
Everyone was, people told me that I have a moderate automatic preference for physically able people. For physically.
Ableist? You're an ableist?
You know, like when we
Sorry.
but like if you're used to that by now, you're crazy. I guess that's a phenomenon. And I'm not gonna bring any cases. We have evidence like sample study because there's magnetic part and I have to read.
I'm basically.
Based in the direction.
Oh my God, can I
like a positive or negative.
I
was gonna say, it's like saying I prefer people.
And then I like.
You're superior to me, because I have brown eyes. You uphold yourself above everyone else with brown eyes. That's what you're telling me now, like, you think we're boring. Ugly.
I mean, I don't think.
You think I'm ugly.
I just.
Uphold yourself higher than everyone else.
Yeah.
In terms of acts.
They're not speaking that we're.
Sorry, I mean.
Yeah, but it's not speaking.
It's not racist.
Well, that's one type, that's policy, but there are other kinds that really just.
Are we ready to talk about this? We're ready? Okay.
I mean, during my whole life.
Yes, I think it helps me so much, and it might help you guys too. Okay, so hold your thoughts, because we have.
Give me another minute. I might need my cell phone for the 2-factor
Okay, yeah, grab
That
it.
just occurred to me.
Yeah, grab it.
2 minutes.
We have somebody coming to teach you something, so they're coming in a moment, that's their found for this, whatever. So, what kind of biases do you feel like you shared any biases with the other person that you're talking with?
No.
Oh,
Yes, same thing.
thank you. We're gonna wait till later.
Online. Like, it's like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
What you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking so.
So, you guys, did you guys talk about your bias experiments with each other? We're missing a room of people. I don't know where they are, but. They're there. Did you three get to talk about your bias experiments, your tests? Okay, perfect. The big question that we have is what biases are we bringing when we travel to Bali? That's really the big question. And there's so many unconscious biases that we have. And then there's other biases that we don't want to admit. And then there's biases that we're probably comfortable admitting. And there's biases we're probably comfortable admitting, but we probably shouldn't be that comfortable admitting them, but we are because we don't know otherwise. And this is true for all cultures throughout all of time, right? So one of the big questions is where do we come from? Like as a culture, as a people, as a family, and then our own ancestors, how do they play into who we are, what we believe in, and also what biases do we have? Let's start with biases that we kind of all know that we have. What comes up? Is there anything that anyone's willing to admit in terms of those tests that showed up that you didn't expect? No? Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of them were like neutral, so I kind of like already knew, like I was kind of neutral on it. Like I did race, and then what else do I want to? I can't remember the other two. I did. I'll see on my phone. I screenshotted it.
And we're in a very, very, very liberal environment, right? So chances are a lot of us have done a lot of work on a lot of our biases, but we all have areas in which we haven't. Like I haven't had a lot of exposure to Muslim culture. I haven't. So
Yeah.
I probably have hidden biases in the sense that I don't understand a lot of things. And I make a lot of assumptions based on what I've read and what I've been fed by the media in my long little life. Yeah.
Yeah, what you said about not being exposed to Muslim culture, I would see that a lot of Americans, since we're built off Christianity, we would have a just natural bias over Muslim, even though we're not actually biased between the two religions, just for what we've been told all of our lives through school and through media and news.
Well, not only that, but there was actually in the 40s and 50s, there was a huge fundamentalist Christian movement that became very militaristic, and they captured a lot of media and news, and it was very, very, very anti-Muslim. And so whether we know it or not, we've been exposed to a lot of false beliefs regarding what the Muslim culture is, who the Muslim people are, and the huge diaspora of cultures, people, ethnicities, races. We need to talk about critical race theory for a moment, but we have to hold all this for just a moment because my dear little husband is here to teach about geology for a moment. His name is Bill, and his last name is Bill Dinklage, and he teaches in the geo department, and he's a very friendly character. So to teach, okay, no, honey, here's the problem. The computer, you need access to the computer. Can you do it without it?
Sure. You can log into his.
Okay, you can log into your thing.
You have to log, just add another login.
Yeah, okay, so there's add there. And then you go.
Like I go to the husband like, bro, I'm not trying to like
And then
any rumors, but I think she had a crush on you.
what are other biases? Like there's a big one that I feel, yeah.
So my family's pretty non-religious, so I feel like pretty much any religious, not to say that I'm against religion or anything like that, but I think surrounded by a community that's deeply spiritual is something I'm absolutely not used to. And I have pursued a science. I'm not, I'd say someone very accustomed to being around spirituality as a whole. So I'll just say that up front.
Yeah, and what do we have going on right now in all of academia and in fact in this country? What do we have going on? In terms of religion and people thinking about religion?
Biases?
We have huge battles going on right now, right? I mean,
Look.
what is a huge part of the Republican platform of it? It's about protecting Christianity and some specific values like no abortion, for example, right? And then we're in an academic community, which tends to be more liberal, but we're seeing huge battles go on across the country in elementary schools, all the way up through colleges about whether you should teach about evolution, whether you should teach about culture, whether you should teach about critical race theory. I mean, there's all kinds of biases going on. And we all fit in somewhere on the line, right? So I'm probably biased on the liberal side of things. Although I've been around a lot of religion, and I actually have huge, I see a lot of value in religion, and I'm going to share all my ideas about that. And then you guys share all yours. So that the idea is that when we're going into any country or any situation, we're going to try and calm our value system enough to hear the other side, right? That's what we're gonna try and do. I'm gonna hold off there so Bill can pop into his PowerPoint on.
So I think we're in Zoom. Are we in Zoom? or
No,
are we in-
so we're about to knock them out.
No, I just want to share the screen.
Okay, so I think we need to, yeah.
I don't think anyone's speaking it, I think it's just like.
And then.
Simon,
Oh.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, Go back.
It's like an intimidation guy.
No, I mean, like, no.
I'm playing.
We were, I mean, that makes sense, does it not? I know how to explain it, yeah,
I was messing.
I know, I know you're.
Yeah.
Like,
Another week anyways. Okay. I just want to redo my things.
Always-
I'm a hairdresser, I really could try.
When they go Spain.
Okay. I don't, I won't make any promises, but I could, well, it just, I did it. I just wanted it. But I didn't do it, my friend did, yeah, and so it's just like, yeah, fix it a little bit.
Rock climbing.
I'm like, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, but we can't hear anything on Zoom.
Yeah, it's moving north. There's collision about to happen in another 10 or 20 million years. We'll have some Himalayas forming right here, just like the way India here is going northbound up into Asia. It's actually on the same plate. India, this part of the Indian Ocean, Australia, they're all on the same tectonic plate, and they're moving northwards. They're moving about a little over an inch a year, about 3 centimeters a year. And so India's been running into Asia. It's been just plowing into it for like 40 million years, and that's created the Himalayas. And Australia is just starting to run into Timor. And so we're starting to get some crumpling of the rocks and some mashing up. And stay tuned, in 20 million years, you'll probably see a big mountain belt here. So you all can come back and check it out. And Bali here, you'll see, is a little bit off to the side, but it's probably going to become part of that crunch also. Let me show you a little bit about just how plate tectonics works here. So some of you might have heard of Pangea. This is the idea that the continents used to be all stuck together. This wasn't the beginning of the world. This was just 200 million years ago. So it's actually fairly recent Earth's history. And the continents broke apart, and we formed the Atlantic Ocean right here. And that doesn't really relate to Bali so much. Bali's happening because of interesting things that are going over here. And as Africa broke away, things over here started moving northwards. And so that's all part of continental drift that's associated with plate tectonics. This is the modern configuration of the continents. And see if you can find Bali. Bali's there twice. It's over here, like one of these islands. And maybe it's off the map, but it's almost over here too. Okay, so check out if you can see something like here. Do you see that kind of dark blue line here? You see another one right here, and here, and here, and off the coast of South America. Anyone know what that dark feature of the ocean is? The trench. The trench, yeah. Those are the deepest parts of our oceans, and the Mariana Trench is the one here, and it's the very deepest. And it's happening because of a process called subduction, where one tectonic plate is colliding with another and going down like this. And that generates a couple of big hazards, the world's biggest earthquakes and also our biggest volcanic eruptions. Well, not necessarily our biggest, but in recent history, our big volcanic eruptions have been over a place where one plate dives down under the other. And if we just had some Teflon, you know, I don't know why God didn't make the earth with Teflon lubricated plates, but then they would just glide down like that and we wouldn't have any earthquakes. But they get stuck because it's rock against rock, and they jam up, and then sometimes they'll go foul and move like 20 feet at once. And so that's created like 6 of the 7 biggest earthquakes in the last 100 years. And one of those was in Sumatra, very close to Bali, just right up over here. So this part of this plate has already done that, really gone slipping in a big way. And that was in 2004, and that created the big tsunami that affected, that was over here, and it affected a lot of Indonesia, Sumatra, and parts of Sri Lanka, and the whole Indian Ocean was affected by that huge tsunami. Okay, so that's going on here. That's the kind of hazard. You could get a big earthquake while you're there. You could get a volcanic eruption while you're there. I didn't look into what recent volcanic activity is, but I haven't seen in the papers or anything that much going on. I don't know. No
First time I
steam.
flew to Bali, I got stuck in Korea for a few days because the volcano in Bali is going on.
Wow, there you go.
You'll see it, it's beautiful. You'll look.
It's called.
What year was that, Michelle?
It goes off all the time, it's going off every time in there.
Yeah, so the
Go.
last one was in
It's the thing.
2019, that was 4 years ago, yeah. So you might see something there. Okay, so here's the tectonic plate that Bali's on. Bali's actually on the Eurasian plate, just kind of interesting, because you think Bali seems so different from the rest of Eurasia. But there it is, and so it's on the southern edge of that green plate, and the Australian plate is moving north, diving into it, diving underneath it. And this is just to show, it's a vertically exaggerated image of these things called trenches. So there's the Marianas Trench, and you don't see Bali there, but that's just to give you a close-up view of the trench. And here's what that process of subduction looks like, where one plate goes underneath another. And here's where you get that rubbing of one plate against another, generating big earthquakes. Japan, the most recent earthquake that we've had on a big subduction zone is the 2011 Fukushima earthquake in Japan. But the one before that in Sumatra was in 2004. Along the South American coast, there's been a couple, 1960, 1970. Alaska had a great subduction zone earthquake in 1964. So these big subduction earthquakes are like all over the world. And then when the plate goes down, it drags water with it, causes melting in part of the mantle here, and you get magma. That magma comes up and makes volcanoes. So there you have it. If you just study this part of the diagram, this is why we have a couple active volcanoes in Bali.
Will volcanoes happen without earthquakes?
No,
Okay,
some volcanoes will happen without these kinds of earthquakes. Like you get some of the biggest eruptions that we've had in North America have been in Yellowstone and actually by Mammoth Lakes. And neither of those had to do with the subduction process, but they were associated with earthquakes. You'll always have earthquakes associated with volcanoes, maybe just small earthquakes, because as the magma works its way through cracks in the crust to get up to the volcano, you'll generate some seismicity. In fact, that's one of the ways that you know an earthquake might be, why you know a volcanic eruption might be about to happen, is there'll be earthquakes, there'll be releases of gases like CO2 and steam. You might see changing the shape of the volcano that people can monitor with GPS. So if there's going to be a big eruption while you're there, you'll probably hear about it in the news. You'll hear probably the Geological Society in Bali monitor it and have some updates, looking for volcanic gases or bulging of the volcano or so forth. So this just shows kind of how these plates move, and then we'll get in just a little bit more of the detail of Bali. These numbers here, like 2, are in like centimeters per year. So here's India moving about 2 centimeters per year this way, and actually Asia's moving downwards closer to it faster than I thought. That 2 refers to a different number. Anyway, you get the idea from the red arrows anyway, that the plate's moving this way. So here's the collision zone and here's Bali. And right there. Here's what this looks like. Here's the trench that's just south of Bali. So you really get a sense, like looming off the coast. You guys are going to be doing most of your snorkeling and just snorkeling, right?
no diving, we have some divers.
Okay, so there'll be some diving.
Michelle's gonna be
scuba.
the expert on
I know Michelle's scubas, but A lot of that's gonna be on the northern side of Bali, is that right? Where a lot of the reefs are?
Northeast and south.
Okay,
Doing
yeah,
it all.
but you'll have to go further south. I didn't check the scale on this to see how
That's
far it
pretty
is,
far.
but that's
We're not going
probably,
in.
that's probably several tens of
I know some
miles.
of you good free divers, but we'll-
So you're gonna be really close to there. You won't be way over the trench, but you'll fly over it probably at some point. And here you can see that arc shape line, kind of line or curved line of volcanoes. It's called the Sunda Arc, if you ever hear anyone refer to it. And it's got active volcanoes along the whole way. And you could have earthquakes along the whole way too. And zooming in on Bali, here are the two active volcanoes. I didn't commit this to memory. I have to look at it here. But Batur and Agung. And this one's Mount Agung here. And it is the taller of the two. It is almost 10,000 feet high, about 3,000 meters high. And it looks to me like a younger volcano. It's more active right now. It's had a, well, let's see, is that really true? No, it hasn't erupted since 2019, so it's less active right now. But it's tall.
Kind of doing stuff and super
Yeah.
sacred, so we'll talk a lot about that. They orient to that rather than themselves.
Do they orient? Okay, so that's it's easy to see. It's gonna be the tallest one, almost 10,000 feet high. The other active volcano is over in this area. And this, just by looking at it, do you see how, I mean, this looks like you're seeing the top of a cone right here. Can you guys kind of visualize that? Kind of like you're looking down on the top of Mount Shasta or Mount Hood or Mount Fuji. Those are all classic examples of the kind of volcano that this is. And this looks different. It's like you've got this big patch of sort of brown and it almost looks like a huge crater. And that's something that would have formed by a cataclysmic eruption a long time ago. It's called a caldera. So this is probably an older volcano. It's had a caldera eruption to it. And right now the tallest part of that volcano, and that's Mount Batur, that is about 5,600 feet high. So it's just a little over half as high as Mount Agung. And the volcanic landscape is really interesting. That can be a hazard, but you know, it's part of the local religion. It's part of what they use to, you know, to navigate by or to sort of like a, how did you put it?
We're
It's
gonna
like
talk about this a lot, like
Yeah.
it's the cornerstone of the entire religion class, so.
And they grow, and volcanoes provide a lot of nutrients because when volcanoes erupt, the ash that they erupt is basically full of things like iron and magnesium and potassium and phosphorus and all these good things. And it blankets the ground and contributes to their really good verdant agriculture. And you'll find rice paddies on the sides of many of these volcanoes. You know, they tear, I don't know exactly where this is. Sorry, I just grabbed it from the internet, but I mean, you'll see this.
It's like
It's what?
a boot. We'll call it a boot. That's what you'll
Yeah.
see right.
And, you know, so you've got these volcanic landscapes with slopes that are rich, they're very fertile. And they terrace them so they can grow their rice paddies. That might be all I have. Yeah. Something else that's interesting, and I don't know if you'll go anywhere to see this, or if it's part of the folklore or religion or history of Bali. But you guys have all heard of like limestone caves that have stalactites and stalagmites, right? So they have those in Bali too. Is that going to factor into anything? Yeah. Okay. So they do have those. It's not like a huge feature of Bali, but what you have is you have this volcanic landscape that it's in a tropical environment with oceans that grow coral. And the coral that you guys will be seeing, one thing to look at is that a coral reef to a marine biologist is like one of the great, most biodiverse places on Earth. I mean, you're seeing modern biodiversity. It's awesome. And you're going to see beautiful fish and other organisms. To a geologist, a coral reef is a limestone factory. It's a place where rock is made. So when we look at a rock, who's heard of limestone? Heard that rock name? Yeah, okay. So we make buildings out of it, like the Egyptian pyramids are faced with or built out of limestone blocks. And limestone is, a lot of limestone in the world is made out of basically fossilized, compressed like coral reefs. So you'll be watching rock being built from a geologist's perspective when you're at the coral reefs there. And a lot of Bali has old coral reefs that have been uplifted. And so they're part of the land now, they're way above water. And some of them form these limestone caves. And they form by temperature. Like limestone is soluble in water, bless you. And I'll say one more thing and then I need to go. Another cool thing is, and I don't know if this is part of what you'll talk about, but I just learned this when I was doing a little research on this, but there's the temple of Pura Uluwatu is the sunken temple. Okay, so why does that even occur? You're in a tectonic landscape, and without getting into details, when you have tectonic plates converging, you're going to be like pushing up the land, but in some areas the land might get pushed down too. So you have some parts of Bali that are uplifting and other parts of Bali that are subsiding. And so during human history, at some point, this temple was built, and probably after an earthquake or two, it subsided and sank, and now it's this underwater temple. So that's just part of the evidence of the shifting ground of Bali. Any quick questions?
Quick question, do you have lava tubes in anywhere that there are volcanoes?
Not necessarily. You need a really runny, flowy lava like the lava you get in Iceland and Hawaii to make lava tubes. And you get them in a lot of other different parts of the world. The volcanism in Bali is going to be a little bit thicker, pasty lava. The kind that tends to bottle up pressure because it is pasty and hard, doesn't flow very well, and so it explodes instead of flowing in rivers. Nonetheless, I'm sure there are places, any volcanic arc like Bali would have that rock that Iceland and Hawaii is made of, called basalt, and I'm sure there are some lava tubes somewhere. It's just not going to be, you're not going to find as many as in Iceland, for example. Yeah. That's a good question. Okay, you guys can Google that and see where are the lava tubes in Bali. Did you do that already? Are you in your phone?
I got you. I'm gonna look
Okay.
right now.
I bet there are some.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, have a blast and focus on the biology and the culture when you're there.
And have no fear, if some of that was a little bit fast.
Oh,
We'll do
right.
a lecture on plate tectonics in our
Okay,
oceanography
bye.
class when we get there.
Have a blast, you guys.
Thank you for your time. It's always nice seeing someone like super passionate about what.
Instagram, did you guys hear that? Were you able to get that information?
Yes. I think we missed the first part, but we got the second part.
Okay, cool. It's just cool to see what's happening, right? And Michelle is gonna give you a lot more on that round, right, Michelle?
Yep, we're gonna have a lecture.
Okay, so where were we? We were talking about biases and we were at the place of talking about educational biases, right? So that we grew up inside our educational system, right? And we think some of us think it's awesome. Some of us think there might be some holes here and there. Some of us think there might be a lot of holes. Some people are trying to shut down education systems altogether in different parts of the country right now, right? We got a big battle going on in terms of education. But the question is, what are we as a group exporting to Bali when we go?
I think different ideas of gender norms in society. I think we have different probably ideas of what women and men's role should be compared to, I think, a lot of their maybe perhaps more traditional ideas.
And that's a really interesting question. We're going to get into that a little bit because when we look at the history of Bali, you're going to see that there were different time periods in which different gender expressions and expressions of sexuality and sexual expression were acceptable. And throughout the Indonesian islands, there's a huge variation in what is and was okay. But we're very close to the Philippines and what's happening in the Philippines in terms of gender expression right now. Super scary. It's super scary. People are being murdered if they are part of the LGBT community or expressing themselves in other gender expressions. So that is a big discussion, right? And we're going to be getting into all of that because we're looking at religion and culture and how those things play each other. But that's one thing. What else? We're exporting this idea that learning is good, right? Which I think is fabulous. What are some other values we want to be?
I feel like we'll have different like things we think is like manners wise. Like I don't know like what their manners are like, but I know in Egypt, when you eat like dinner at someone's house, you're supposed to critique them and like say what they could have added, which is rude in our culture, but they find it rude if you don't tell them how you can critique their food. So I feel like there's certain things about Bali like that we would do that we think is like respectful, but they might take it the wrong way if it's like showing your shoulders or like I'm a big meat lover and I know some cultures like are frowned upon eating cow or whatever. So I don't know if that's part of the Bali thing because I'm completely honest. I'm not the most knowledgeable about the culture, but
and that's what we're here for, that discussion. And I actually have a whole PowerPoint I'm gonna move to regarding etiquette and culture.
Huh.
And there's a lot so that I don't know that I'll be learning more about as well.
Yeah.
But we'll go into some of those ideas. So we're exporting the idea that education's good. We want to be super sensitive about that concept of what education is. And I'm gonna, my bias is really strong here, and I'll share my bias, which is that formal education is only one of millions of ways to learn, and it's not necessarily the best way. And for thousands of years, we across many cultures, we had mentorships, and people trained learning through family members or friends or people in power, you know, different skill sets, and they became incredibly skilled. And in Bali, the bulk of the people who are in Bali might be considered laborers or farmers, like 80% of the population. However, they're insanely, or historically, Balinesians have been insanely skilled in specific trades, and different villages have been training people in specific skill sets. And many Balinesians will stay up until late at night training in their specific skill set. And there's a beautiful balance that honors both labor and farming and the arts. And we're going to really see that. And it's one of the reasons that Bali is so deeply beloved, I think. So I just want us to be careful exporting that value and be really, really humble about that. There's another huge value that we Americans tend to export, and it's a reason that we are not often loved as tourists. Do you know, can you think of that? Like, why are we not always loved as tourists? Not you guys personally, but just, you know, maybe cruise boats or people who are traveling involved. Why are we not always loved? Yeah.
I feel like Americans often expect things to be just like America when they go to other places.
True. Very good point. What else?
I feel like Americans are kind of known for being loud.
We're known for being loud. Yeah. What else are we known for?
Usually only speaking one language.
Only speaking one language. You guys are hitting a lot of points. What else?
A lot of like American tourists like are very like trashy. Like they go on all these like sacred places and like leave their water bottles for stuff like that. And we also tend to capitalize on the countries. Like we'll go to the country, buy houses there, and like kind of just like make it more of a monopoly. Like that's what's happened to Bali a lot. I've heard.
So he brought up three ideas. One, that we're sacrilegious. We are known to not honor other sacred traditions in other cultures. Two, that we might actually leave trash, right? And three, that we buy up real estate in other countries. So that's going to be something to watch and see if you see that. Any other thoughts that we export as Americans?
I think Americans are pretty self-absorbed. Like they care about themselves. It's always you first. Where in a lot of cultures, it's actually the better good of the people first.
Okay, so she's bringing up a really important point about individualism, and what is our Constitution based in?
Sorry.
No, it's based in, yeah.
what's the other one? Not communism. Yeah.
Well, we have a very unique brand of democracy, right? Like it's different from the social democracy of the Northern European countries, right? It's based on what do we give huge, there's a movie I really want you guys to all write down. I want you to watch this movie. I want you to watch the movie 13. And you don't have to watch it now. You don't have to watch it this week. We can watch it maybe as a group when we get back or something. There's not really time. But we value and 13th.
It's 13.
The movie 13th.
13.
Yeah, it emphasizes like the power of capitalism, right? It's a really powerful movie that way. There's actually a couple movies I'd like you guys to watch. The other one, we'll write this down. It's called The Inside Job. It's an amazing documentary. The Inside Job, and the movie 13th. But it's our own unique brand of individualism, right? We more than any other country in the world emphasize the rights of each individual to bear arms, to speak and say what we want, to own our own land, right? To what's the idea? What's the American dream? Yeah, we can create freedom. We can climb the social ladder, right? We can become wealthy if we work hard enough, right? And that capitalism works for us, right? And that if we put in blood and sweat and time and effort, we can make money and we can produce from that, right? So that's just a worldview to know that whether or not you agree with it, we grew up in that culture. Now, I'm going to switch over to the other question, the other assignment for a question. We've been talking a bit about values. Your ancestors, the ancestry assignment, what kind of values came up when you were doing that writing? Yeah.
My grandparents are very traditional Southern, just like cold-blooded, super Christian, super traditional. Men should marry women. That kind of family was their upbringing, which is very interesting to me because my more recent family is completely agnostic. We're not religious. We are, I'd say, women should be educated. But my later family is very much traditional Southern Christian values and a lot of, I'd say, old-fashioned ideology that comes with it that is more accustomed to that space and time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What up on the Zoom screen, do you guys have any comments on on your ancestry assignment? What you came up with in terms of thinking about family and values? Yes. Go ahead. Sorry, I've got to get to the screen. I can't see very close. Yeah. Malia.
Okay. Yeah, so my ancestors, they came to Hawaii a very long time ago. And I feel like, I mean, I'm sure Kapua can relate because she's from Kauai, but I feel like we're raised in a very different way than our friends who were grown up on the mainland. I feel like there's a lot more respect and a lot of family values that I noticed weren't the same when I moved to the mainland. So I feel like a lot of our family here, there's respect, honor, and loyalty that I noticed come up when I was writing about it. But yeah.
Hey, back to honor, loyalty. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Somebody else. Anybody on Zoom screen wanted to speak? Malia.
Yeah, other Malia. I felt like with mine, a lot of like trust and integrity and hard work came up a lot. Those are just values that I feel like a lot of the different authoritative figures in my life have really emphasized. And a lot of kindness too. I remember hearing a lot about like being kind and like killing with kindness as a kid. So those were kind of what came up as values for me.
Okay, and we're gonna do another exercise after this, which thank you for reminding me. Anyone else on the Zoom screen want to speak up? No? Anybody else here? Who else wants to share some family values? That family values, more ancestral values, things that you really know got passed down. That might be part of your family values, but part of your family ancestry. Could it-
Like the biggest value of my family is honesty. We have a saying like, don't ask if you don't want our honest opinion. So like no one in our family asks like, oh, do you think my dress looks good? Because our response will be like, do you want the honest answer or not? So it's kind of like,
Okay, so speak
So,
honestly and
yeah.
clearly.
and then we have like a family symbol of like a sunflower. So that's like one of our symbols.
What are some others? It'd be really great for everybody to at least say a couple things in doing this exercise that some values that you know kind of got passed down.
Well, I would say one value, just in general about the Hawaiian culture and kind of my ancestors, is like caring for the land, and like you don't own the land, like you're just there like taking care of it because it's taking care of you. And that's definitely gone passed down through like all of the generations.
So that's a huge, huge point. And we will be
I'm sure it's
discussing
like that in
at-
Bali too.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's another cornerstone point of the classes that I'm teaching. Super important point. What else?
In my family, it's always been very important that you can do what you want. Like you can become like whatever you want. You just have to actually do it. Like there's no like you didn't do anything. Of course you're not anywhere in life. There's like no pity at all.
Oh, so it's kind of hard. It's like
It's
you
a
gotta-
little
you
bit
gotta-
harsh, but like you can do it. Like there's never doubting yourself, which has always been really nice.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm like a really big advocate for manifestation. And I truly think that if you put your mind to something, you'll get results that are meant for you and they'll help you. And I found out while writing this, I asked my uncle because he did my ancestry and stuff like that. And there's a chance that my family was on the movement of Manifest Destiny. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it was when America was just civilized by the Europeans, and they had a journey to get to the west side of America without any geographical knowledge, and they just went all the way across America by manifesting civilization and everything. So I think that was a pretty cool thing I found out because I love manifesting and the concept of manifestation. So that was a pretty cool thing that was passed down. I think it was passed down.
That's
And
awesome.
same with my parents. They've always told me that manifestation is true.
Okay, so kind of dreaming and focusing and putting effort into making something happen.
Beautiful minds.
What are some other values? These are good to hear. Yeah.
My dad's side is from the Netherlands, so I feel like we have a big, like minimalistic life approach to things and like more focused on the home and family and food and like creating a cozy environment. So I think that's kind of what I felt growing up.
That sounds lovely.
Especially the food.
And we will be talking about how these different countries, including our country, what we've borrowed, what we've not borrowed from the Northern European countries. There's some really fascinating comparisons we'll run into here.
I feel like my family really values like caring for like the community. Like we're all like I'm from like a very small town, and like we're all very active in the community, and it was kind of just like passed down. Like my grandma is like was born in the town that I was born in. Like so like we're all super active and like taking care of your neighbors, like friends that are family kind of thing.
Yeah, so all these things that you guys bring up, we are gonna see in different ways in Bali. Gonna be so I'm loving what everybody's saying. What are some other things? I want everybody to say something, and let's keep saying like, hey, I'm Parker and blah blah blah. So we get to know each other by name.
I
Like
guess
this-
I'll go.
Yeah.
My name's Parker.
My name's Parker.
Both my parents were raised very religiously, but in my household, they ensured my sister and I that we have the freedom to choose whether or not we want to be religious or not. And so I chose myself to not participate, but my grandmother used to participate when she was here with us. Yeah. And my grandmother on my mother's side participates in Buddhism versus Christianity on my father's side. Yeah. That's just one of my
And we will be visiting a Buddhist temple while we're in Bali, and Bali is, well, we're gonna just get into the history of that. It's a huge topic, and the way that Buddhism interfaces with Hinduism, interfaces with Islam, interfaces with Christianity, we're gonna be watching that and learning and discussing as we are there. So super fascinating. Okay, who else?
I'm Kyle, and I think my family, they don't push it as hard with this generation, but it's a lot of hard work. My dad grew up in Canada with no like electricity or water, and he would have to hunt for his food like a whole caveman. He's crazy. And then my mom's side of the family, my grandpa's like a NASA scientist, and his passed down between lawyers and like doctors. So it's just hard work and a lot of dedication everywhere. I think that's my biggest.
Does that feel like pressure to you, or does it feel like, how lucky am I?
It's good examples. It's a lot of pressure, but I can see how hard they work, so I know I can at least keep up.
Nice. Cool histories. It's great to learn. We're gonna learn about each other, and we're gonna go into some group agreements a little bit later today, but what are some other things here? This is kind of important and valuable. Yeah.
My name is Brady, and my paper, the theme was also hardworking and dedication and determination. Those are my themes. I had several anecdotes, but one was about my great grandfather who worked at a laundromat in Pennsylvania. And then during the Great Depression, he was let off. And throughout like the next decade, him and his brothers, they like hand built their own laundromat. And after the Depression, they like went door to door and they washed everyone's clothes for free until they had trust from their customers. And then they charged money, and it became like a really successful business. And then his mom during Prohibition, like made potato vodka and bartered with like a bunch of people in her town to like keep her. Yeah, and I think that's good.
Wow, awesome tips. And you will see the Balinesians are extremely hardworking. And there's of course very variation in every part of every culture and within every family. So there's no generalization that speaks surely and truly, but we will see hard work very strongly imbued in the culture. Who else wasn't spoken? Wants to add? Yeah.
So my name's Natalia, and for me, like my family is all immigrants. We came from Mexico, so that's straight to Santa Barbara. So I grew up here, and I think something that I noticed growing up, because I grew up on the Mesa, like right near here, and so a lot of my friends, I didn't have too many Mexican friends, so it was always kind of interesting comparing like what my household was like versus like how my friends lived. And I think a big thing that I always noticed was like how important family was in my house, like just like eating together and not having the idea that like right at 18 I was gonna move out and go to college. I'm here at City College, still living at home. So yeah, I think just having that community and like having good relationship with not only my parents but also our family in Mexico, like we go every year to see. So yeah, I just think that was a big thing.
Fantastic. And we're going to take note about that. Take note when we are in Bali. Are we seeing lots of family members connect to one another? And if so, how? Are people eating big meals together? When and how? Is there pressure to leave the family household? How, when, why, etc. All those questions we'll discuss while we're in Bali. Great points. Who else hasn't spoken that we just want to get everyone's voice in? Partly we're getting to know each other and we're getting to know our history. Yeah, we have some Zoomers no one's spoken. You want to add in, Rosie?
She was like waving her hand.
Oh, I just haven't spoken, but I was gonna say a common theme in my paper kind of aligned with Parker's with the religion. I kind of was really fascinated to look at the religion because my mom's side of the family was raised super like devout Christian, and my dad's was raised super Catholic, and when my parents got married, it was kind of similar. They chose to raise us with like the freedom to choose what religion, and so I'm like really interested to see how that plays out in Bali too, like what the pressure, because I have friends who I've seen like have been pressured into religion versus having the choice, and so I'm really interested to see how that plays out like in the dynamic in Bali as well.
That interesting question, super interesting question, which we will be addressing. Rosie, do you want to add anything?
My family's kind of the same. Me and my siblings all had the choice to choose what religion we wanted to be, and both of my parents aren't religious either. And a lot of the values that I've grown up with and that my grandparents have taught us are just like kindness and compassion for others, and then like being yourself and being confident and comfortable with being yourself. So yeah.
Thank you guys for adding in. Do you want anything? Yeah, go ahead.
My name's Ella. I feel like there was a lot of people that like stepped up in my family. Like around like 5 years ago, we did like an ancestry DNA test. And I had asked my dad, I was like, "Oh, who's this person? Like, this is a different last name. I've never heard this before." My dad was like, "Oh, that's weird. I don't know who that is either." My dad had messaged him, and then like he responded a year later. They were trying to like figure out, oh, this is person, and he had sent a picture of his dad, and we realized that it looked exactly like my grandpa. And so we were like, "Oh, is that not like my grandpa?" We were like so confused. We found out that my grandpa's dad actually wasn't his dad, and like it was like kind of like a cover up because the guy had left my grandma alone, and so the Byerly family, which is my last name, but technically not my last name, stepped up and said that they were gonna take care of my grandma and the son. So just like a lot of people that I like stepped up and like taken so that they were gonna take care of the family. So that was just very like special to me.
And that's a really important point that does happen in Bali also. I'll talk about that. There's actually a tradition for that happening. So thank you for bringing that up. Does anybody else want to add? Michelle, do you want to add?
Well, I share a similarity in having a lot of intense religion in my families. The whole Irish Catholic and the whole like Catholic side, so those are shared and a lot of rebellion against that. I stepped away from it and I chose to leave the church when I was 16, but a lot of real deep opening and awareness to recognizing that spirituality transcends religion, and so there's a lot of like conversation about spirituality without needing to put it into a box, which is really awesome, but a lot of respect across the board. And by the way, my dad worked for us. Share that.
One really cool thing about anthropology, I think, is that when we get into these discussions of religion in particular, because that's one of the topics coming up, there's a lot, we're going to give a lot of respect for each religion, whether it's a religion that may appear to have a lot of cult-like qualities or not. We are going to speak with respect because it's the only way to go in terms of addressing humanity respectfully. And I'm really appreciating that language as I speak about that. And there's a reason why that's important in anthropology, right? Because we can become either super ethnocentric. What does ethnocentric mean?
Centered around,
Can you say it louder?
like centered on like our own ethnic background.
Centered on our own ethnic background, right? And when anthropology started as an academic field, it was fully anthropocentric. Like it was literally a bunch of white men going into any village that they wanted across the world, planting themselves with their tents, their comforts, their foods, and doing what they wanted in the village, and then pulling the research that they wanted as they saw it back in and publishing it for their own gain. And you know, there was a lot of that in a lot of fields, right? Including a lot of biological studies that were done, and including the eugenics movement. What's the eugenics movement? Anybody? It's super scary. Yeah, go ahead.
It's basically us trying to kind of cull people out of society that we deem unfit to reproduce?
It's a super, super scary study, right? Not just study, but like set of intentions and research that was trying to create and go back to what had happened actually thousands of years ago. Like we have populations of people competing for resources for thousands of years. And my history top subject PowerPoint will go into that. We'll be discussing a lot of that and values. So through all of human history, we've had slavery, right? We have judgments and we have cultures that are more aggressive than others. And we have cultures that are trying to take over other cultures throughout time and throughout history, right? The eugenics movement was, in my subjective language, an insane and crazy and psychotic movement designed to try and create a certain kind of breed of humanity. And it allowed certain scientists to experiment on all different cultures, races, and ethnicities in order to try and reproduce something that Hitler then took and moved and took and really tried to extrapolate from and use in his movement in Germany. So the eugenics movement is a super scary time in history. And in any case, what I was going to is from anthropocentrism, we're going into a very balanced place in terms of all of our studies in trying to get the value in my mind, and Michelle, please comment, but one of the values of being in an educational system is that, and the value of science itself is that we are trying to quiet our own bias and pull as much knowledge quietly from all these other perspectives so that we can then gather a larger sense of what might be going on in a world, or what might be going on in a plant species or a specific animal species or in a human culture. And fortunately, anthropology has very much moved in that direction, and I'll be giving a lecture on this later, but the idea is that truly the postmodernist view is that there is no one truth. And you'll hear lots of people say that really, if you want to see any kind of reality clearly, we're at best getting 40% right, because we can only see from a very small perspective because we have so many biases coloring the way we see the world. So I just wanted to try to today elicit a bit of some of what our biases might be going into Bali. And in order to do that, we have to learn, well, what biases did we come from? What ancestry did we come from? And what are some of the fabulous biases that we have? So everyone in the room has pretty much mentioned incredible sets of biases in terms of kindness, hard work, education, sharing the landscape, taking responsibility and sharing for others, all of those things. And in my mind, those are things that we probably, as a human race, want to keep growing and developing. I think there's some biases that we don't want to bring in. What are some biases we don't want to develop? Here's a crazy one. All presidents of the United States have always been 6 feet or taller. And I, as a small person, am super done with tall being better. We've always associated tall with being smarter, and I'm so done with that. I am also so done with smarter means being male, like done. And I'm also done with genderizing people as male or female, or as, having sexual preferences, being hetero as being better. So those are biases that I am super not fond of. I'm also, of course, not fond of white is better. And I'm super supportive of learning about critical race theory, which is being shut down across the country. And that was a question that I had asked before we got interrupted, which is, what is critical race theory? Who wants to kind of bring up
critical race? I just wanted to say something about gender roles. So I know a lot of us right now, we're sitting in a generation where women have really pushed out of a box that we've been in culturally for generations. And one thing I just want to mention, can you guys hear me okay on Zoom? Okay, one thing I just want to mention is we're going to be in a culture where there still really is a very big difference in the roles that men versus women play. And stay open to that, because even within that construct, there still is a lot of beauty and a lot of strength. So it might push you a little bit to realize that, my God, the women have to get up at 3 a.m. and do all this Chanansari and do this work, and look at them, and you know, the men are just kicking back, eating all the rice, you know, like things like that are gonna come up for you. And if we asked you to do something like cover up, we're not body shaming you, we're asking you to be aware of the culture we're in. So those are really big to bring in just from the other aspect.
And we will be addressing all those things because all of those things have historical sources. And I 1000% agree with Michelle. Like, we want to go in with a quietness in terms of our value system. But we want to be also open to learning what's going on and what's the history of what's being hidden and not being shown, right? Because, for example, you know, even 5 years ago, nationally, the number of people in the United States who supported the LGBTQ community ranked at 5%. Now, 2023, it's ranking at 15 to 25%. So we're seeing, you know, our values shift in the United States. We don't, and Michelle will comment on this. I'd like Michelle to comment on this, but I don't see us as a group needing to export our values. I think of us as a quiet, having a sense of quiet in terms of respecting and learning, because we're not there that long, and there's a lot that we don't see, and there's a lot of history that I'll do my best to share, but I'm also a beginner and I'm also an outsider, and I want to really own that, that I'm not here to export any values. The shoulder covering, for example, that's really interesting. So one of the ways that Bali became very famous is that white male Europeans went into Bali early 1900s, took a lot of photos of bare-breasted Balinese women, beautifully dressed, beautifully bare-breasted, and sold that to Europe. Europe became a huge tourist destination, and we're going to talk about the history of tourism and how it influenced Bali. But at the time that religious conservatism began to rise up in Jakarta and throughout Indonesia, women were asked to wear tops, and they were actually then taxed, fined, or punished for not wearing tops. So the wearing of tops has an historical roots that come long before, Western American tourists arriving. So this is part of something much bigger that we're participating in.
I have a funny top story. Just inside in cultural north. I work in Micronesia also, and in the outer islands, it's traditional that women don't wear shirts still. But we, me and my friend who started this nonprofit, we're both teachers, and sometimes we bring our students from community college, so we're not gonna go topless, culturally in front of our students. And so we were in this meeting on this island, and all the women showed up, wrapped up, their tops covered, and I thought, oh no, what have we done? We've made them feel embarrassed because, we're wearing shirts, and so I checked in with them afterwards, and they were like, oh no, we just felt so sorry for you that you had to cover up. We decided to make you not feel uncomfortable.
That's so great. That's a great story. What if we take a little 5-minute break and stretch and get a little snack, and then we'll come back together? Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, move your little booties, shake them.
And there's some soda water and then cookies and chocolates. Sorry.
You know, it's gonna work the other day. Okay, but it's like still hot out. It's still
Yeah. On the Santa Barbara.
I will not put my head in there, because I gotta go. So sorry.
No, I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wouldn't put your hair.
I'm not gonna lie. You didn't get one. Yeah, they're all over the sitting right now.
Better than the water smelled like. And then
Oh, you bought your.
threw up that night.
Not yesterday.
We're gonna do it again.
$130.
Your science, your boy, respect it.
Yeah.
I was saving like $100.
I'll jump in.
Yeah,
I'm debating.
How about the fin snorkel?
Yeah.
Strap?
I think if it was
It's like a
longer,
snorkel
like
strap.
a full investor, I don't think I would have gone,
That's not coming.
but,
It did, but it should.
my mom.
So he bought it. Oh, wow.
Like,
I was like,
Like a big, yeah, mine are.
Hey, have you guys already bought yours? Okay, because I was gonna tell you they're $80 at like this place called Sea Landing, and it's like the snorkel gear that they're using. They just bought new ones.
So fast and like.
Yeah, it's like eight
mine were like 100.
Huh?
You get your visa?
I'm getting it tonight. I swear. Worst case scenario.
I could run in, like, no matter how cold it is, otherwise we're gonna get like wiped out. Yeah. I would say
It only
like.
takes 24 hours. Yeah, I was.
Rio Similar. Been down there. And you just have to see a state lifeguard, you'll do a swim test and a run test. And you and then I'm a student, so I drive to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, we'd be like, you're gonna be making it.
We can have to, we have some rookies this year that don't.
I was gonna bring the whole like chipset.
I grew up in Florida.
Yeah, that's such a.
I love it. I lost my character. If I wanted to take like lifeguard for the dog, I'm not gonna go for that. Like, I don't really want to.
Probably gonna have some.
I've been on duty for a long time, like part time or whatever I can. But it's not what I want.
I'm in 2 million.
I wanna go.
Everyone's staying.
I've heard of that. My mom happened, now she told me to buy a dog. I bought a water bottle that's so. I didn't know you can buy it, I'm sure. I brought a lot. Like I literally, this.
They
There's
were
like $80 in there. Crap. That's what I wanna do.
I know everyone got out by a drug. It's amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I thought they were like big ass.
I know, I thought they were big too.
I just be aware of the pan. Yeah, there's a pan.
I need a bag tag for like the $1 million.
You guys looking at? There's a fucking plastic line on.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
It's
Just chihuahua or something, like. You're probably worse. Yeah. Chihuahuas, I prefer big dogs to little ones. Oh, no. I have a lab who's literally like the sweetest dog I've ever met, like he doesn't like, it's insane. And then I have a little dog. But he's much smaller, like a lizard, there's like a squirrel that like terrorizes him in our backyard, they go run along the side of the fence, so funny, literally like antagonist. It's not that bad.
I like. Like setting it for a week. Go to the same ones last time. I bet.
Yeah, I know.
It's no week.
Right.
Who's gonna risk it?
Here, so I'm actually pretty excited to like force feed myself.
Like, are they? Oh, it's really bad.
Exactly, bro. I'm like a kid's menu kid.
Love them bars.
Yeah, love the cars. Love the cars.
Are they?
You guys?
Yeah. They're from last week.
Yeah.
Wow, that's, they've been saved. They deserve. Probably living by now. Always, I don't know if it's pretty close.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go. I'm scared of the already. So ready for whatever we're doing.
Okay. So here we are. Okay, so.
Two things I would have never guessed.
No, I got it from Starbucks.
Okay. Still, that's really good though.
Aspen and Amelia and Rosie and Sarah and Malia. Hi guys. Did Aspen, did you want to say anything? Or Amelia about family? Do you want to add anything?
Mine was kind of just like same to other people. Like my grandparents and like ancestors like were very religious, but kind of as generations went down, I feel like it kind of became less instilled in us and like we became less religious. And then just kind of like value wise, like I feel like it was mostly like kind of just like honesty and integrity, and also kind of just to always like present yourself like really nicely and kind of just always like put on your best self, I guess.
Awesome values, right? Totally great values. And we're going to talk about why that's happening, right? Because across the board, a lot of people are saying that. The family used to be religious, but now it's not. And now we have the value. So we're going to look at why that's happening in our culture. And we're going to look into why and what is happening with religion in Bali. And is that same shift happening? Are people becoming less religious over time? What are young people thinking? Can young people leave the various religions that they're a part of? Is it easy to leave? Is it not easy to leave? Why or why not? What is going on? Those are some really great questions we're going to be getting into. Who else from Zoom? Anyone else want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Aspen.
So I'm mixed. So like my mom's Filipino and like my dad's white. And like my dad, he's Polish, but he's like only lived in America. So he did like the whole like high school, go to college, transfer through college, and then like eventually find a job. Like a very like kind of like standard American life, I guess. And then like my mom, she grew up in the Philippines and like only moved here like in high school. And then like she didn't even get to finish college because she had to work so much to like pay for stuff. So like I found like as I was growing up, it was kind of like my mom was really like traditional with like family, and like she was like insists that like we always go to all of our family gatherings and stuff. And she also didn't understand like the stuff I do in college because she didn't really get to do that, you know? So sometimes I find myself like torn because I'm like only one of them really understands my life sometimes. But I also get to learn a lot from her.
Super tender, super, thank you for sharing that. That's really important, right? And we've seen with a lot of our immigrant cultures, if you read some of the histories, they are so intense as to what people had to sacrifice and how they were treated. And I bet a fair number of you might have, if you look back enough, you will hear the stories. And there's some very, very intense stories of how people were raised and what people went through in this culture. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing the split in terms of, you know, lots of confusion, lots in terms of lots of values. Yeah, that's really important. Okay, so I want to do another little experiment. So everybody stand up without talking. We're just going to stand up quietly. Right? And we're gonna be doing lots and lots in my classes of work, like on interacting and doing stuff barefoot and we're gonna be doing so much stuff. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm so excited. But anyways, go ahead and I want you to walk in different, don't walk in a circle, but walk around and go sit someplace new in the room. You can bring your notebooks if you want. And just stay quiet while you do it. You guys can't do it so much, so sorry. Just shift your little place. Okay, now turn to the person next to you who you've not worked with before and greet them. It's always nice to get people's emails and talk to them, but don't start yet. Don't start acting yet. We're gonna drop into, I had so many things to drop into today. I didn't know where to start because we've got the marriage and family class, which dovetails perfectly actually with the religion class. But then we've got the whole culture of Bali encompassing both classes. So where I'm going with this is I'm going to be giving a little bit of an etiquette discussion about some of the customs and traditions of Bali. But before I do that, I want to drop into this first little marriage and family exercise and ask you with your partner to discuss. I bet none of you have read chapter. How many of you have read chapter 1? You guys, I'm so proud of you. So that chapter emphasizes a lot of different things, right? But one of the things it emphasizes is process versus like product or, you know, system, right? So I want you guys to, with your new partner, greet each other, say hello to each other, and then talk about the most important processes that your family has in terms of greeting one another, in terms of taking care of one another, in terms of resolving conflict with one another. Okay? So have that discussion with your partner for about 5 minutes.
I feel like I know that shit.
I'm over there. I'm a big family. Greetings, my family, my dad's side.
Like hugs like that.
All handshake.
I'm so
My dad, that side, my mom's side's more like, oh, it's so cute. Love their cheeks.
supporting events, I mean, that is like showing up, that is like, right. Yeah.
Like someone. So like if I've had friends where they didn't have like anyone to spend Christmas with, whatever, so we would bring someone. And like run down and like I just give you a hug and they want to have a 5-minute conversation, get to know you. Like, and that happens with every family member. So by the time my friend is like a little bit like everything there and red, like at a or like they took them there last year for 5 minutes.
Okay, that's cool. I think that's.
I only need one couple, yeah.
Nothing really like that in my family.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you grown up so much. You're like 2 inches taller now. How are you? How's school? Okay, goodbye and go talk politics the rest of the day.
It's been a lot. And it was just,
There's people that have known me my whole life, and I don't know their name, but they've known me so long. Like, and I feel bad like asking their name after like they've been to like every family gathering for the past 15 years, 19 years.
Both your mom and dad sides are pretty big.
so it's not just a person.
It's not just.
I don't really know my mom's side, but she has 9 sisters. They all have their own children. They're all in Vietnam. I grew up here, so I never really met them.
Bro, come to Vietnam with me. That's my first
That
stop.
would be really dope. That would be dope. I've been when I was like when I was 15, but so it's not really enough time to get to know all of them or even remember any of the names.
Like have like random traditions.
I wish I could, but I'm broke after this trip. I can't really.
Yeah. That's why I'm working.
Take those traditions, like those kind of things like very serious.
Yeah.
I kind of realized that after.
My friend was like, I believe for like a month or two, like she was like drinking a shit ton of alcohol, like staying at night, staying in nice places every single day for like a month straight, paid $80. You know, it's like, and she was not hungry, so I'm like, because I'm paying for it all out of pocket as well. So that's why I'm working when I'm there.
Nice that you are able to work while you're.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of research. Like I've been looking for remote jobs for a while because I travel. I have a holiday. Yeah. So that the thing that's nice is the time zone switch. So during the day I'm gonna be able to hang out there, and at night it's like daytime.
That's cool.
But I just need to, I'm gonna be working from like 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. at the same night.
That's it. I mean, it's smart for you because then you'll also be traveling later, so you'll need the extra money.
Just need to sign a few flights.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about one of my friends lived in Malaysia, and I was like, how much like do you have to like make a month to like live good? And they're like $500. You're like, you can support a whole family, have a house, $500 a month in Malaysia.
That's nice.
The expensive part is just the plane to get back, but you can live off like $10 a day in Asia. Because like your housing is $5.
I only read about.
Well, we're just waiting for those guys to come back. You guys are amazing sound here. I'm like gonna love working with you guys, being with you, spending time with you. Okay, so while, oh, well, wait. Okay, I think everybody's there. Aren't they? There we go. Okay, hi guys, can you hear me? We good? Okay, so I want everyone, please write this down because we have to bring this in. It's actually really, really cornerstone to this class. I want you to write down. You've got to read page 18, page 17 through page, let's go through page 35, 34.
What book?
Of this book.
Which one is this?
Got married.
Yeah, well, I want you to look through this for many, many reasons. Because the class that we're teaching is going to be about 90, a huge percentage is about learning about Bali, but it's also learning about ourselves, and it's also learning about our culture, and it's also about, helping ourselves just grow to be better citizens of the world. So I want you guys to read 18 through 34 because we're addressing each different kind of ethnic group as it's defined in the United States. And I want you to read about those histories. So that we're gonna have a discussion first thing when we get to Bali, not first thing, but in one of our early lectures, we wanna have those discussions. And then you can bring in your own family history to that if you want, into some of that historical reality, including some of the historical changes that have been made according to because of these groups and some of the traumas that these groups have faced, and how trauma impacts action, and how trauma impacts how individuals respond, and to what degree we decide to act like more of a community or we act more individualistically. And we're going to look at the landscape of what it means to grow up in a culture that puts as almost its number one value individuality and capitalism and the power of capitalism. And what does that look like when we go to a different culture? And I don't want to define what Bali does, because there's lots of things happening to Bali, and it's getting deeply and profoundly impacted from lots and lots of angles, and it has been through history, and we will talk about that. But going back here, to what degree did you guys find interesting solutions to the question regarding solving conflict? We'll just go for that one question since we're short on time. Yeah, what are some ways that families solve for conflict? I'll start with fighting, big blown out arguments, right? Yelling. What else?
You can go.
My family's a lot of by yourself. When something big happens in the family, everyone kind of goes into their area and just decompresses.
Okay, so we go for silence and quiet.
Yeah.
Quiet.
Quiet and breathing.
Okay, quiet and breathing. So, okay. Yeah, that's very modern Buddhist, actually. Yeah.
I think my family, we just kind of yell at each other for like 5 hours, and then we do the exact same thing his family does, where we kind of go our separate ways and decompress. Very rarely is the issue actually talked out in a reasonable and rational way.
Do we, okay, so, okay, good, yeah.
I feel like I'm the opposite. I feel like my family talks pretty well, but rational.
It kind of just stays in a logical, rational mindset.
Yeah. 'Cause
Okay.
we gotta come to a conclusion. You can't just like argue.
Okay,
At least that's what my dad did. My dad like doesn't.
okay, let me tell the Zoom people, we have a problem. Can you hear us right now speak? Can you hear us, but you can't see us? Can you see us?
No, we can see you. At least I can.
Okay, well, our screen went blank and we can't see you, but at least you can see us, which is really cool. The problem is gonna be that I'm about to give a PowerPoint, so I might need to call or ask Michelle to call Tack again.
Does anyone want these? I keep on eating.
Well, why is that it turned on? Let's
I
see.
don't know, I thought maybe it was just sleeping, but.
Don't tell me that.
Oh, did you?
What else do we have for solving conflict? What do we have going on over here in these families? What are some traditions?
Well, my mom wants to talk everything out, and she wants to go in circles and like talk for hours and like get all your feelings out. And then my dad's someone where it's like, if something happens, he's quiet for like 2 days, like don't talk to him, and then he acts like nothing ever happened.
Okay, so that's good. That's not uncommon, is it? Not uncommon. Good job. Michelle's again to go. How about over here?
We had like a similar like family dynamic like that. My mom's more of like everyone has to sit down and talk, but they're also just kind of open to like there's nothing wrong with like arguing in my family. Like if we disagree on something, like we can argue, it's fine. It doesn't have to be like a big deal. Just like talk back and forth, and like if you want to like yell or something, that's fine, but you just like get your voice heard, and then like people just like do with that as they will. I think a big thing is just like wanting to be heard. So
wanting to be heard, that's big, right? Yeah, okay, what do we have over here?
Me and my brother are like pretty good at mediating. Like we're always like very communicative and we never really have that many issues. But like my dad, he's more sensitive and he's very emotional, which isn't a bad thing, of course. But it's just like when he like takes everything in and then like bursts out all of a sudden, because he like builds everything up and then all of a sudden it's like a huge problem. Like, oh, you didn't tell me about this like a week ago, and then all of a sudden it's an issue now. So yeah.
There's skills. There's a lot of skill in how to mediate for conflict, right? And we all have developed different skill sets. And again, this is going to really play out in the culture of Bali in terms of bigger organization and in family schema to some degree, which who knows how deeply we'll get into that. But it's something that we want to be addressing and looking at. How about you guys?
In my family, it's more who cares more wins the argument. So who's gonna put in the most effort?
Okay.
Who's gonna put their foot down or like whatever. And then like usually like if someone loses the argument, they go do something they want. Like my dad got a microwave recently. 'Cause my mom didn't want one. And he lost an argument about something. And so he went and got a microwave to comfort himself.
Awesome. What do we have?
About like a $2,000.
We both had pretty similar experiences with like, if there's a problem, everybody wants to solve it. So a lot of teamwork with like, okay, there's an issue between maybe two siblings, then like parents or other siblings for me would step in and help, so stuff like that.
Okay, so a lot of cooperative problem solving.
Yeah, very much like a group effort.
Okay, everybody gets kind of involved. Okay, what do we have over here?
Sure. Both my parents are pretty emotional, sensitive people, so it can be difficult, but I feel like me and my mom will like talk it out, but then my dad kind of gets like he thinks like turning it into humor is better to do it. So he'll like do something and then he'll kind of explode and be like, but I was just joking. And it's like, okay. So I feel like we kind of just like, settle down when we realize we're getting a little bit heated, but yeah, that's kind of how we do it.
Okay, and it's really fascinating to talk to a room where we have some Japanese, some Chinese, some Italians, some Germans. I mean, it is really, really fascinating to learn about, problem solving. Yeah, go ahead.
My family rarely has problems. We're all pretty good with each other. We live in a very tight space, so we have to be good with each other. But if there's ever a problem, we normally just talk it out. My brother's the problem. He's 13, so he's gone through a lot. So
Okay.
he's just got exploded, but we make sure he's okay and everything's fine.
Okay, so highly communal system.
Yeah.
Highly communal system. One of the things mentioned is space. In some families, people take physical space, right? Okay, yeah, what do we have for here?
Well, Gabby, I think just went to the bathroom, but we were talking about how kind of our family dynamics were similar in that my mom or our moms would be like more like we wouldn't really fight with our mom as often. But if we did, we would definitely fix it like pretty quickly. But with our dads, it was more of like a thing where you were just silent for a few days and gave them their space until they were ready to work it out.
Okay, so a little bit of a strong difference in how we relate to gender and roles, the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, you guys.
Go
ahead.
Okay, so my family kind of has like a wide dynamic of conflict resolution. Like 1/3 of my family is like super like forgiving and apologetic. Like if you hit them and you hurt your hand, they'd apologize to you for like hurting your hand with their body, and then the other third is like very like stubborn and stern and like thinks their way's the right way. And you can't really problem solve with them. And then the other third is like very passive aggressive. So like they'll be like, no, it's fine, but I really wish this was different. Or like, like the passive aggressive. So it's kind of like that dynamic. But our family's really good with communication. So I get hangry sometimes, not gonna lie. And so I'll be a little bit more moody when I'm super hungry. So I'll just be like, I don't know why I'm mad, but I'm hungry. So
Television break, bring snacks if you get hangry.
Yeah.
Bring snacks in your backpack. Darren said it was fine, yeah? Like hangry is like a real thing. Yeah?
Okay. My parents kind of just let me and my siblings like figure out our own problems. And if we couldn't, we would end up fighting like physically. And my parents, I don't know, we don't really have a process with resolving conflict. Everyone kind of just ignores the problem until no one cares enough about it to mention it again. So then it kind of just disappears.
Okay, very different,
Yeah.
right? Very different. And we're gonna notice that different cultures have different language. Like some cultures don't have the word sad in the culture. They don't have language for conflict or fighting. Other cultures have very clear and articulate language. I'll go into more of that later. Yeah, go ahead.
For conflict with my mother, it's a lot of silent treatment. There's just no talking at all until someone says something, like someone steps up to be the bigger person. Usually it's her. For my father, I have to give him space. He could be a little angry sometimes, but it's okay. And my sister, I haven't really solved that issue yet. It's just a lot of bickering. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we went around there and he asked a question about snacks. My feeling about it, and you can comment, is like, bring snacks for the whole trip if you can fit them in your bag, or just for the plane, or what's your thought? I think you're gonna have plenty that you can buy there.
Abundance.
Yeah, there's an abundance of food, but if you have like a certain thing.
If you're one of those people that can't live without peanut butter, bring peanut butter, because Asia doesn't really.
Missing out.
Okay, what about, okay, so up on the screen, some quick conflict resolution styles. Sarah.
I would say with my dad, it's very similar to like I noticed a lot of people are saying like, with my dad, it's like we'll get into an argument about something and then we won't talk about it or really even talk to each other for a few hours, few days, and then it goes away like it didn't happen. Whereas with my mom, it's very like, let's talk through it. I like, especially with her, she's very like, well, let's figure out why we had this problem and this and that. And then my brother and I aren't very close, so I feel like we kind of just bicker like siblings, and like that's that. Like we don't really have like a resolution. It's kind of just like sibling fighting.
Okay. Who do we have? Aspen.
Usually like how it goes down is that like my dad is like still in work mode and he's a manager. So I feel like quite managed. And I'm like, stop managing me like that. I'm not like your employee. And then I'll just be like, but he'll like keep going at it and I'll just like shut up and do silent treatment. And then later he'll apologize.
Okay. Okay. Silence is powerful, right? It works. Malia. MALIA.
Are you talking to me? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, my sister and I, we kind of just like fight. I don't really know if there's a resolution, but we kind of just go at it, and then we just like, I don't know, if you have a sister, you get it. But we eventually like chill out, and then she's like, "Oh, do you want to go get Starbucks?" or something like that, and then we're like, "Okay." It's kind of avoidance, I guess, maybe.
But it workable. It works.
Yeah. It's also sisters, but yeah.
Malia, what's something that happens in your family with conflict?
Yeah, I feel like my mom and I definitely fight a lot. Well, we used to fight a lot when we lived together. Now we're best friends and I adore her, but we just need to be in different spaces. And it usually starts out with some kind of debate about something. It doesn't even have to be regarding us. And then all of a sudden we're in an argument. But my dad, he and I have never really, I think I can count on one hand the times we fought. If we are pissed at each other, it's silence for a couple days and then we'll get back at it and kind of talk about it a couple days later.
Okay. So different responses for different, parents. Rosie?
My family's pretty confrontational with each other, so there's a lot of communication if there's any issues. And I have 3 younger sisters, so me and them definitely fight a lot, less than we used to, but definitely with that, it's kind of like Malia was saying, like once you fight and then in 30 minutes, I'll like go back into her room and ask if she wants to go somewhere and then it'll be fine. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm not saying that is or isn't awesome, but it sounds like it's resolved. It resolves itself. Yeah. I don't know if she can hear me. Amelia.
My family usually kind of takes like the ignoring and like avoiding route, and then like if it builds up enough and like if it's that much of an issue, then we'll kind of like hash it out and like argue it out or kind of just like talk it out and hopefully get somewhere, but not always.
Okay. Thank you for bringing up. So we have a lot of different mechanisms for solving issues. We can pretend it doesn't exist. We can do silent treatments, and we can do silent treatments in a peaceful kind of space way, or we can do silent treatments in kind of a blaming, attacking way, right? We can have full-on physical fights. We can have verbal arguments. We can have subduing and apologizing quickly. We can have power standoffs for quite a long time until somebody chooses to give in, right? We have lots of different methods for solving for conflict. Our culture, American culture, we are known to be very, very direct. So in some studies done regarding plane crashes, if a pilot is in charge of the plane and someone else working notices that we might be coming into danger, that person, it has no problem cussing, screaming, yelling, howling, whatever, to get the plane safe. And when you look at the records of plane crashes, like the verbal recording, in cultures where confrontation can be direct and honest, there are fewer plane crashes because the problem's gotten solved quickly. In cultures where we're going to speak very gingerly and kindly and say, "My, it's raining hard," and speak with some subdued, soft voice, we have many, many more fatalities. And when this was discovered, we were able to give training, not we as in me, but the larger us, gave training to the cultures that tended to be more respectful of different power dynamics and different hierarchies and different contexts. Like a high context culture that is respectful of lots and lots and lots of detail is better. They tend to solve problems in a very cooperative way. A culture that tends to be very direct and low context and speak directly and answer problems, we can solve for emergencies very quickly. We may struggle more in things like politics because we will fight for law, bash things out, and not be willing to compromise as much. So when you're in Bali, look for, we're going to be doing a fair amount of observing, and you're going to look for, you're probably not going to understand Balinesian. And neither am I, but you might be looking for tones of voice and body language, because those are huge markers of how we solve for conflict, because we're animals first, humans second, right? And one of the big ceremonies in Bali is tooth filing, meaning that when you go through puberty, and for sure before marriage, everyone has their teeth filed, because some of these teeth can be sharp. And they to the Balinese people, this is a very, very old tradition of shaving off parts of the teeth that make people look or have qualities that might be more demon-like or negative. It's a culture that leans very, very highly towards high context resolution. We're looking at community first, big picture first, and we're going to really look at that in detail. And we solve for individual angry responses. And you're going to see lots of variation in the culture. And then, of course, when we discuss what is Bali and who are the Balinesians, huge question there, right? So I have a huge history lesson, which is going to go into that from the beginning. Like, I've got my lesson starting at like several million or multi-million years old to the present. So you're going to see all the influence of who are the Balinese people, and who are they now with the influx of tourism, and how is that influencing certain values. Now, that said, I want to go into this little, and you guys let me know if you can't hear me or see me, okay? Because I'm going to pull up a little PowerPoint here. So you guys let me know. So Darren sent a very kind of simple Balinesian etiquette paper. Dress and act modestly. That has historical reference. Don't use your left hand to touch or give. That's also a very old, huge rule across many, many, many parts of Asia. Also many, many parts of Siberia, and many, many parts of Latin America, and part of many, many and indigenous tradition. So that's an old rule also, especially for all cultures that continue to eat food with their hands. Let's see, don't use your index finger to point or beckon. True, do not do that. Now that's also a tradition that spans many, many cultures, and that includes feet. You don't want to point your feet at people, and especially bare or unclean feet. Don't lose your temper. So Americans, yes, oh yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. Can you guys hear me? In
I just wanna
Zoom?
make sure that-
Are you screen shared? Have I screen shared?
No, I don't think we don't have a screen share, but we can.
Sorry. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible human. Here, there we go. Now can you see?
Yeah.
I'm just talking about these things. I'm not reading through them. So this part kind of doesn't matter. This will matter next. So thank you, Michelle, for being my savior again. Americans are known for being loud. You see us fight huge fights, fighting over food, throwing away excessive food. I mean, the whole thing is just wickedly embarrassing for those of us who like to be culturally sensitive. And it's something that we don't do in Bali. We don't raise our voice, lose our temper, show anger or passion openly, right? As is an individualistic culture, we are super fine with that. And it's gotten to the point of grotesque in politics, right? But did you guys see Okashia's response in the Congress in the last week when several congressmen accosted her publicly on the Washington steps? I'll share it with you guys. It's an awesome response. She gave an awesome response. Very important. Don't touch people's heads. And it's one of the reasons we don't see many two-story buildings in Bali. It's the reason that Mount Agung and Mount Batur have the power that they have, particularly Mount Agung. It has to do with how our bodies are seen. We're going to be doing a lot of learning around how the Balinese cosmological view connects to the architecture of the home, the way that they see their own bodies and one another's bodies, and how we treat one another. But I just want to emphasize, you're not to have a big, huge anger fit. And you can try and hold me back if I have one. Just hold me back if I go into a rage. No, don't touch people's heads, even little children. Don't. And then never also go in on a dog, right? Going down to pet a dog, because that's very terrifying for an animal that can't see up. And then here is a rule that's very, very old. And we don't know exactly when this rule or etiquette began, but the idea of blood is impure. When babies are born, the mother and the baby are considered impure for the first 42 days. Baby's not allowed to touch the ground. Purification, after purification rite is done so that baby and mom become more pure. Now, we Western women have a different view on menstruation and how we're going to handle that and how we deal with that. But in Bali, we want to really respect this tradition. So maybe let us know privately in terms of where you're at when we go into a temple. And then there's lots to do in a temple besides going into the middle section of a temple. Temples are usually divided into 3 sections. You are going to see these beautiful Cheneng Sari offerings all over Bali. And offerings, again, we'll be doing lots and lots on offerings because it's a huge part of Balinesian culture. There are many, many offerings made for the gods and also many offerings made for demons and the shadow side of life. And we want to just avoid stepping on any of it. You might find some at your door and just, you're going to honor and be thankful, if you don't mind, the offering that's been made, and just be respectful of where you see them. And then we're going to go into that in depth. Religious processions, there may be some or there may be many. We don't know what we're going to come up against. We're not going to be in Bali during any of the major celebrations. The major New Year, which is happening, and celebrations for some of the goddesses, some of the big temple celebrations we won't be there for. However, Balinesians have 8 to 12 temple celebrations per month And so there are many celebrations happening all the time. So we will certainly catch quite a few. Very, very true. Balinese people tend to be very proud of their culture. Also, there's a huge benefit financially in having tourists, and this gives Balinese the opportunity to share their culture, which we're very lucky to be able to be a part of. Let me just close out of this and move into something else. Okay, moving into this. I have so much material to share with you. Okay, so when we address people who are older than ourselves, we call elderly people kaki and dedang, and we might hear the words bakuk or pak and ibu and nene. And if you can get a little dictionary to learn a few words, that could be helpful. I don't know what degree you'll be interacting, but you have a lot of choice in that. And Michelle, please feel free to add or bring in anything else, because you have a lot of knowledge to add. If you address younger people, you can address younger people with mas and mimiriba, and I don't have the right tone and punctuality, so we're going to ask our Balinese friends instead of me, right? Because I'm going to ruin the way a word is beautifully spoken, and I'm really, really sorry about that.
A really fun thing that you can do is we'll be driving in smaller vehicles like vans or just SUVs, and so getting to talk with your driver with open phones, you'll find that you're quickly friends. So ask them.
Yeah,
they love it.
Yeah, good. The language, so there's two languages, right? Kawi and the local Balinesian language, which is called Bahasa Indonesia. And that is spoken throughout Indonesia. And Indonesia is largely Muslim, right? It's basically, okay, I actually have a video to show you, which I actually have up. Can I do that right now? Can I just stop what I'm doing and show you that video, because it will give you kind of a wonderful little touch. It's right here. 13 minutes.
Travel buffs rave about.
That's like, welcome to Bali. But it's going to give you a little bit of history.
Most gods. Bali contains many temples that signify the diverse ideas of its people. Most of these temples are dedicated to Balinese Hinduism, an endemic blend of Buddhism and Hinduism, and other indigenous beliefs from Java. The breathtaking scenery, the mystic blend of religious thought, and the contributions to world heritage spur on the feeling of wanderlust. Bali has attracted the attention of other kingdoms throughout history. Bali has always put up resistance against foreign invaders, but it has also been forged in the ways of the various cultures that landed ashore. By preserving the traditions and customs of old, it stands as a testament to the past, the present forever colored in its tribute. It functions as a quiet sanctuary that revels in its oddities and idiosyncrasies, offering solace to all those who seek it. It has been ruled by the Majapahit Empire, has undergone an era of Islamic domination, and has resisted bravely against the colonial enterprises of Europe. Today, 80% of its population is Hindu, 12% is Muslim, 5% is Christian, and 0.5% is Buddhist. A magical world of folklore and pantomimes, Bali's history is as rich as the aesthetic pleasures it offers. To understand the history of Bali, one needs to understand it on the context of its geographical position in Southeast Asia. Bali is part of the southeastern archipelago of the Lesser Sunda Islands of Indonesia, where it exists as one of the 34 provinces of the Republic of Indonesia. Indonesia is the largest island country in the world, with its 34 provinces constituting more than 17,500 islands that spread from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean in an arc. Indonesia forms an oceanic region of coral and maritime life abundance known as the Coral Triangle, with Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, the Solomon Islands, and Timor-Leste. The Coral Triangle lies opposite mainland Southeast Asia, also known as Indochina, a large peninsula that comprises Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, mainland Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Bali is part of archipelagic Southeast Asia, standing far west in the chain of Lesser Sunda Islands, 2 miles east of Java, an island that played a tremendous role in shaping the city's culture. Now,
Okay, we're gonna go back to that later. We're gonna finish the history on that another day. But I just needed you to see that big picture and see how many islands are currently speaking Bahasa Indonesian. Now, of those 17,500 islands, all of those islands were influenced by many, many different cultures and developed their own religions, their own languages, their own responses to everything from gender identification to sexual identification to expression of religion to concept of marriage and concept of religion. But when Islam got very, very strong in the 11th century, and as the trading routes got stronger and stronger, dominating, just like Costco dominates, a lot of Santa Barbara, Islam started, having its impact on these smaller cultures and ethnicities and religions. And as a result, we right now have Bahasa Indonesian spoken, but there were thousands of other languages spoken and are still spoken on different islands. So I just want to make that super loudly clear. To say hello, you can say Paki. So everyone say Paki.
Hockey.
Paki. Or
Hockey.
Apa kabar. Apa kabar. Apa kabar. Try and get that in there. Paki. Turn to your neighbor and say Paki. Apa kabar. Apa kabar. Apa kabar. Yeah.
Are those 3 words just mean hello?
Both of those words mean hello. Also, Lunga Kija, and I am putting together, of course, more simple vocabulary, but but if you can get a hold of, when you're there, you'll be able to get a hold of, in a second, little pocketbooks of language. You can buy books there, right? Like, there's lots of books in lots of languages. Okay, here are some principles. So we've talked about our ancestry and where values come from, and values that we tend to hold dear to us as they came from our family. And we talked about family processes and how we solve for issues. And I'm just beginning to get our fingers wet in this concept of some of the etiquette going on in Bali. So there's a concept called Tri Paratha, and it's called 3 happiness. And there's 3, these are basic principles that little Balinesian children are raised with. One is asi, or compassion or love. Look to prevent quarreling. Look to protect each other and care for all beings on the planet, including plants and rocks. So all beings are honored. Punya. Provide help to the people who need it around you. You see someone suffering, help them. So that's the opposite of judging others, right? You see someone dressed poorly, who has less, who is in help, your effort goes to help and to support. And then bhakti, offer and worship God. God, there are many names for God, and boy, we are going to go into it. But a general term for God, we might say, is Hayang Widhi. Hayang Widhi, the unknowable knower, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. The umbrella term for God, Hayang Widhi. So the Balinese are constantly practicing love, preventing quarreling, punya, helping others in need, and offering and worshiping Hayang Widhi. Okay? Super key concepts. Again, we don't touch the head, right? And everyone has 4 noble traits, and we're all going to share 4 noble traits. Friendly behavior towards one another, And Michelle and I really would love us to really deeply embrace these concepts with one another, as I think you all naturally do. But we together talked about, rules and agreements, and the Balinesian Hinduism has such a beautiful way of embracing the concepts that we want to embrace as a group. So Maitri, a concept you've probably heard of in yoga, friendly behavior towards others, not bossing one another around, forgiving mistakes, lots of forgiveness, and sharing joy and sorrow together. Karuna, compassion towards all humans, animals, and the environment. Very, very, very different from the Christian modality of dominating the environment and the environment existing to serve humans. Very different reality paradigm there. So the environment is here to honor, and so we're going to give offerings, and we're going to share with those who need it, including the weak, and even an injured animal or a plant we're going to take care of if we can. Mudita, the concept of being attentive to the feelings of one another, being empathic, being sensitive, sharing in joy and success, learning to share and care when others are sad. And that means if I am sad, I get a phone call from my dad and he says something that hurts me, and I come from a family tradition of quiet, then I'm going to honor that. So everybody's ways of resolving conflict are valid and important, and no way is better than another way. So we want to help and support each other however we can when we need to. Upeksha, this urges us to not interfere with others' affairs and to respect other people's rights without accusing, without insulting, without looking down upon anyone, and without judging. It's kind of a hard call, to be honest, because as humans, we judge. It's how our brain works. The other thing that's very biologically old is gossip. It's how we create groups, right? And biologically, we have a reptilian brain, right? And that reptilian brain, when we feel threatened, it goes into action. So one of the things that we'll be doing are meditations and quieting to just train our bodies and beings, our sympathetic nervous systems and our parasympathetic nervous systems to stay really gentle and wise and open as we take in learning. And I went over those too quickly, so I just went over those again, right? Maitri, friendliness. Let's all write that down, right? Friendliness. And with Maitri goes forgiveness. I forgive you. Right? Buddhism and Hinduism both have strong traditions of honoring your enemies. And there's very good reason for that. And I'll go into that as we study religion. And then being present for both joy and sorrow. And then karuna, compassion towards all living beings, including rocks, which Mount Agum and Mount Batar are living. So we're going to honor living, right? Mudita, being empathic and sensitive, sharing joy in other people's successes. And then upeksha, not getting involved in the drama. And trying not to judge, We talked about clothing. One thing to take note of, a top, women's top, so upper part of the body is more godlike. And so we see the Balinese dress in lighter clothing. I was given 2 silk tops by a Balinese woman, and it's a light silk. But whatever, just think about light. Unless there's a cremation ceremony in which people wear darker clothing. Same with men. When you wear your sari, and we'll show you, women wrap the sari and tie it on their sides. Men take the sari and then create several folds in the front and then tie the sari in the front. And then men often have shorter head wraps, and you can buy all this beautiful, exotic, extremely exquisite fabric for your sari wraps and your clothing in Bali while you're there. We've already gone over that. Yes.
So is it like we're never allowed to wear like tank tops or shorts or anything like that? Like we have to 100% like, I'm just like wondering like the.
No, we're talking about that's in the town.
Oh, okay, okay.
So yeah, I mean, we're gonna be basically staying at resorts the whole time, so. It's totally fine to be we'll be wearing tank tops and shorts and bathing suits. But if you're in temples or in town.
Yeah.
Another question, I have a tattoo that like goes to about my elbow. Are they like against tattoos at all? Like would, okay.
You're good with tattoo. Totally good. I mean, a huge part of Polynesian culture is tattooing, the art of tattooing, and
Oh, I was just making sure because I know
Yeah,
some
no.
cultures are against it, so I don't know. If I need to cover that.
No, beautiful. I'm like Michelle, I will wear like a sari if I'm in public and not in, but if I go to dinner or something, it's like night, I like it, so whatever. Any other questions? Anybody want to add anything or address anything? Let me drop into the other group here and hang on. I know, you just gotta make it big though. Where's my?
You're still sharing it, Frida.
There we go. Do you guys have any questions? Rosie, Aspen, Malia? No, are we all good here?
You'll share all those PowerPoints with everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not gonna share every single one of them, but I will share the ones we need to share, of course. I think that's a good ending spot right there. There's lots of history to go into, lots more etiquette and culture to study, but I think that's kind of a simple time to end. Michelle, do you want to add anything?
We're doing a lot as we get there. I'm sure that, Darren and Betsy are flying out today. I'm sure they'll be reaching out. Sorry, Laura. So they'll probably be reaching out a bit, but just a note on when we're going through customs. Just be a little on the down low about saying, like, don't say you're going to school. Say you could be being like on a snorkeling trip or a class trip. It's just the United States isn't the most favored of many Muslim countries, and so we just want to be a little careful about and you can't work there, so just don't mention your business. Like just be like, going on a snorkeling trip, going on a class trip is fine.
Could you say I'm a tourist?
Yeah, you're all tourists for sure.
And we have tourist visas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're tourists. But you just doing research. But I don't know. I'm just really excited to finally leave. I'm just how has it been? I'm curious for you guys. How was it like last time? We've only run this trip once before, and we just went. We didn't do we did the one main orientation that you all did in May, but we didn't do these extra. How are you enjoying that we had this extra time together before we leave?
Yeah, I think it would have been pretty nightmarish going straight into it.
I know. Yeah. I was talking with some of the 2019 students, and they were saying how they were standing in the airport and people were walking up and being like, "Hi," and you're like, "Who are you?" So it's really beautiful to see this community, and thank you, Betsy, for facilitating such beautiful drop-in with each other. And I just I know that it's scary to going away for so long, and it's a little overwhelming and packing and everything, but we're all here as one team, one group. And if there's anything from my ancestry that I'll definitely bring, it's that, we had to work through adversity and single parenting as a team, and that's the only way we survived. And when one person wasn't okay, none of us would rest until that person was elevated. So if we all go in with this like real deep and noticing of each other, and, you know, a lot of us will be on the plane together, so we can get up and tell each other which movies to watch and share snacks or whatever, blankets. But yeah, any questions you guys have, we have the WhatsApp group, which is great. Those of you that haven't got WhatsApp in a while, I can't find you on WhatsApp. Try it again, but let's make sure that we're all communicating with each other. WhatsApp is a great resource for a lot of the Balinese, a lot of people overseas use it as their like phone number. So it is a really great one to have anyway. You can call people at home through the internet on it, do video calling, it's great.
This little side note, my son was at the airport. He ran to grab a snack because he had eaten, and there was this huge line to get on the plane. He grabbed a snack, rushed back, doors were closed. They had just literally closed, like literally 30 seconds ago or less, literally just. And the person said, no, you may not get on the flight. And he had to wait like 12 hours in the airport to try and catch something else. This is not the flight to miss. You do need to be there 3 hours early. I'm going to bring a mattress and take a nap between, but I'm going to try and fall asleep. I probably will fail, so I want to hang out with all you guys. But I'm going to try and like sleep a little. So anyways, we solely want to see you, but please don't miss your flights.
Yeah, 3 hours. You need 3 hours in LAX.
And it can take, once you get off the exit, just to get into the drop off, a full hour. I've done that driving. You never know what you'll get at LAX. It could be a smooth thing, or it could take a full hour from the exit. So just plan in accordance with that.
I know, I was wondering if we should even take the earlier one just to be on the
No,
safe
I
side.
think we'll be okay.
Also, I just want to let you guys know if I have an extra seat in my car. Like, I'm in Ventura, but if anyone needs, if they want to take a $15 train to Ventura, it's like $15. I can pick you up from the train station. But yeah, if someone doesn't have like an Airbus thing figured out.
And do you have a
but
place to put your car? Is someone gonna take it for you so you don't have to?
my mom is dropping me off, so
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
You're so sweet.
But yeah, I was gonna let you guys know about that, but it seems like everyone got it already situated. But I live in Ventura because I can renew a lease out here, so. But yeah, so.
That's awesome.
So what times, so my dad says we should get to the airport around like 9 p.m. because like like getting in for like very hectic. That's good too.
No later than 9, for sure.
And then I had a question about the aerosol sunscreens. My dad's pretty sure they're gonna explode in my suitcase. Internet's doesn't, like there's a few different things it's saying, so I'm not sure.
I would avoid aerosols because I don't know, and I've heard stories like that, but I can't say what's happening these days in terms of aerosol. You could
I
call.
think they are on the list of things you're not supposed to pack. Now that you see
Because that's how I got my most of my sunscreen. So
aerosols.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hey guys. Sorry, I was like holding my hand up, have to interrupt. No, it's fine. So I think I'm not on the group flight or anything, but I'm gonna get to the airport before you guys do, and I think I get to the hotel before you do. Am I able to check in for myself, or do I have to wait for the group?
Be able to say who you are and what group you're a part of, and my guess is that they'll be generous, but if you get in 5 hours early, they probably won't have a room.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't expect the check-in time and all that, but I think I get in like an hour. Then do you think I should contact the hotel to get a car to come pick me up from the airport, or do you think a taxi would be?
Darren, talk to Darren about it because the drivers will be there. It's very close where we're staying in Sonora is very close to the airport. So our drivers can pick you up. So just
right on.
Connect with Darren on WhatsApp about
cool. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay? And he'll make sure you're set. We want to make sure you get a ride.
I just don't want to get like kidnapped at the airport.
No, you're working. No.
There'll be a lot of people that really want to give you a ride. So we'll just make sure you have somebody set.
Raj.
Send a little note to us. Yeah.
How like intense is their customs like when entering Bali? Like is it
it's
I don't know, like.
It can be, they can, check everything or they can nod, it's just. So remember Darren mentioned the other day, if anybody starts to pull anything and, corruption is widespread in the universe, so. Just say you don't have any cash yet and
Digital world.
pull out your credit card and they'll be like, oh wait, no, 'cause then that makes it official. But that never has happened to me, and I'm rolling in with like 4 or 5 suitcases full of microscopes and stuff, so. They've never super looked through my stuff. Being kind and looking people in the eye and smiling, saying hello is always good, And we're all gonna be really tired, so we're gonna end up, we're gonna get to the other side of this beautiful ocean exhausted. And so we wanna be, we'll get to the airport, we'll get out of the plane in Bali and we'll kind of go through all together. Yeah.
The first day, are we just kind of money exchanging and getting to the hotel?
So the very first day,
Yeah.
so we'll arrive around 3 PM on the group flight.
Mhm.
And we'll get to the hotel, settle in, get showers, and then we have this group dinner.
Full time.
Yeah, you might be really tired, I don't know, I don't tend to have superpower of sleeping on airplanes, so I'll be really tired. But you may be, and then the first full day we're there, we're going to be visiting a group that does some activism work there, but we also are talking about a little fun morning for you, but we'll work it out, but we'll make sure there's enough cash on hand. Darren is gonna exchange a bunch of cash, so you guys can just kind of switch through him. He won't be making money off it just at market rate, but just so that you can start with cash.
$100 bills are better than 50.
If you're gonna do an exchange at a bank, those nice clean hundreds, so like that's on my list of things to do tomorrow is go to my bank and ask for some good hundreds, but I'm also gonna use my ATM card a lot. So there'll be ATMs in the airport before you exit. Yeah,
Are we gonna be able to chill in the pool, the jacuzzi every night?
jump in the pool or
Sorry,
jacuzzi.
chill.
Chill. Oh, yeah, I don't know, I don't recall there being many jacuzzis, but swimming pools.
Like jets.
There are swimming pools everywhere we're staying, except
Massages
for
are like
Matalo
$5.
Bay in Nusa Lembongan, but the ocean's 80 degrees.
Okay. How much did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Are they like super cheap massages?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So you're looking forward to the most.
really sweet, yeah. Yeah, Natalia.
Weird.
$5.
We'll touch him.
And at least it's $5.
Let's keep the chatter so that the Zoom won't hear.
Would you say that most places you can pay with card, or do you need more cash on hand?
Cash.
Okay.
Unless you're in a boot, which is kind of like being in Santa Monica. In my view, no, but you like the best deals and the funnest stuff are on the street vendors, and that's all cash. So we'll also talk when we get there about bartering. They're really into bartering. So you'll learn a little bit.
They love Americans.
And then just remember, you never pay anybody with your hands. Betsy mentioned, you never, don't hand money. If you start to hand somebody money with their left hand, they might not take it even, and they'll get visibly stressed. Which, hang on, hold that thought. Which reminds me, by the way, most of Asia, a lot of Bali for sure, at the resorts, of course, you'll have a normal toilet, but often there's not, like if we're out and about and you use a toilet, it'll just be like, it'll be a toilet that will flush, but you won't have toilet paper. You'll have like a bucket with water and thing to wash yourself, which is the whole reason the left hand is involved in that. So I might recommend, especially women, for when you need to pee, maybe bring a little container of hankies that you can, those Kleenex, those travel Kleenex, you might just want to have those in your pocket.
That's actually
Until you get used to the water situation. Sometimes there's places that I'm like, I'm not really gonna put that bucket of water down.
They're not like fancy big. They're not like.
No, they're not big. They're literally just a bucket.
I do have a clean one.
With water in your hand, yeah. Yeah, so it is just, so, you know, I'll bring some extras, but it's good to bring a little bit of Kleenex with you. And what, Sydney, what was your question?
Can we bring stuff to trade? Like if we have little trinkets and stuff that we don't really want and just for the fun of it, would that be offensive to bring stuff to trade?
I don't know, I have never.
Well, I'll try it.
Mean that, you know, mean to in exchange for like a sarong or something.
I don't know, whatever. I guess there's stuff I just don't really care about that I think they might find value in. Like just necklaces and stuff like along those lines.
I would think of it in more in terms of gift giving. Like
Okay.
I've definitely had situations where I've been, you know, maybe bartering with somebody for a sarong or something, and then they're like, oh my gosh, you know, that hair clip is really nice. You know, like I could really use a hair clip like that. You know, so you know, you can think kind of in generosity. But I mean, one time it was my last hair clip, and I was like, no way, can I get my hair clip? I don't really need, but I was like, so. Yeah, I mean, gift giving is always in any culture is lovely, but don't bring trash and like
No.
really as you're packing, really take a look at. Like if you buy some new products, you know, like I just bought a new battery charger, take it out, you know, like let's think about not leaving plastic trash in a country that really can't.
Including dental floss, you had a good point on even dental floss, it was like really being sensitive to the Western materialistic impact on a small island.
Yeah, you'll see the plastic problem so starkly that you'll never be able to handle plastic in the same way again. But I do want to like offer a challenge. I did this to myself in when I was just in Micronesia, and I didn't let any of my science team throw away anything plastic, and I just had Ziploc bags, and every candy bar we ate, every, you know, little antiseptic wipe we used or whatever, any Band-Aid pieces, we would put them in these bags, and we brought our plastic trash back to the United States. So at least it's better in a landfill here than being tossed in the ocean. So I would really like actually challenge you to like think about doing that. You can rinse stuff off, and you know, like, so some big Ziploc bags are kind of good because then they can totally seal, and really think about minimizing it. You know, I'm bringing a lot of vitamins, but I'm gonna bring all the containers back.
Yeah, me too.
With cool sand in. What else? The last minute.
I have a quick question. Sorry to interrupt on Zoom. Can you reshare the itinerary? I know you said you were updating it, and I was trying to find it in the Google folder, if that was something you could reshare.
Okay, I thought I had already reshared it. So
Oh,
sorry.
maybe you have. I didn't see it earlier, but I can look again.
Look in the canvas and click. Yeah, and that itinerary, there'll be a little fluidity to it, so just stay with us. But I mean, where we're staying, you know, the each location, where the hotels. That reminds me, I was thinking of this. I could make like a master list of just like, here's the list of all the hotels we're staying and contact numbers. That's my list of things to do. It's not like this long.
Something we could also share once we're there, that's not, I mean.
Yeah, it just, I know that, you know, like my family loved knowing, like right now, you know, there's been a whole conversation over the last 2 days, like, has anybody heard from your sister? She's still at Birmingham, I hear she's stuck, you know, people like to know where each other is. So she's got took 12 hours just to get to the road.
You hike out or did she catch a ride?
In a truck. Anyway, it's nice to have emergency stuff. People know what planes are on. But yeah.
And did you all get travel insurance? Because Dara said that's a requirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to keep a
Super
fin.
important. You just go and square them out and like super inexpensive, just do it. 250,000 minimum for the evacuation.
Yes. Do you know if when we get to Taiwan, will we have to like grab our bags or go through customs, anything there?
It's a weird, like Taiwan is a kind of a funny airport, so we will get shuttled in a funny way. You won't have to take your bag, you won't get your checked bags, but we'll have to go through like a whole security thing again. With, you know, with all that, your carry-on bags.
Are we gonna get a stamp, like a Taiwan stamp?
That's a good question.
They're immigrants.
Well,
Or not, I'm not sure. I don't
I think
recall
you have
that.
to
You know?
leave starts collecting.
But it is very, you get there and you realize, wow, I do not speak this language, so it's good to have a buddy, because it's a big, confusing, very busy airport. We'll probably
We'll all
wanna
be
stick
together.
together.
Yeah, and it's nice for, so just for these long haul flights, like Betsy mentioned, bringing a little mattress, like I have like a little silk, like mummy bag travel sheet. That way I'm fine just lying on floors, but I just bought this inflatable pillow at REI. Cause I hate those like weird, I had the U neck pillow thing for a while and it just like found it really uncomfortable, so I got this inflatable camp pillow. And I just took it on my trip to Micronesia and, you know, we had to sleep in airports, you know, throughout and it was so awesome. I really like this. So you might want, you know, something that you can use to, you know, I also like to have like a shawl or a hoodie, you know, so that I can kind of, and I often get quite like planes are like this cold. Bring socks, like I bring a nice warm pair of socks that, you know, are kind of taller for plane rides always. Because my feet get cold on planes, the only time you use them the entire trip unless you're getting really mosquito buggy, but I love my plane
And
socks.
they should have movies you can watch and food, like you feel served, you feel all elegant, yeah.
Our layover in Taipei will be 5 hours.
Yeah.
And we cannot leave the airport. That's not another thing.
Yeah.
I wish we could.
It's a little, I know, I wanna go to Taiwan someday, someday, I mean, go for reals. Yeah, but you know, you'll be pretty tired and there's good coffee and we'll just
More than that.
take naps and pile up all our bags so that, you know, like people could go for walks and we can watch each other's bags and. That's always the fun thing about traveling with other people. It's like revolutionary for me where I don't have to bring all my bags into the bathroom stall and you're like. Yeah.
Are check-in bags gonna be in Taipei or are they going straight to?
They'll be checked through.
So do we have to get them?
No, they'll be
Okay.
checked through.
So we'll only have our one bag we can carry on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or two, if you're me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is like a diving related question. So I got my wallet stolen recently that had my diver card in it. And so the only way for me, I know Patty has like e-cards.
Yeah.
They're like $50. Like they would accept that e-card, right?
Totally.
If I
Yeah, I know.
they would.
Yeah, so Patty or
e-card.
now with your SSI, you can get the electronic card.
Okay.
No
Perfect.
problem.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so if you
Wait,
wanna
which card?
dive, bring evidence of your scuba
I was
certification.
like, which card is yours?
For sure. Get the Dan insurance for sure if you're gonna scuba dive.
It's ready.
It's more, but.
Like I surgery.
How's you guys, you
Like
think
they're not
the
letting.
last,
Oh, and also I have, Ari and Callie and Emma left their contact information, so I'll put that out in the, if anybody wants to, they said, please, you know, reach out if you guys have questions. I know Aspen, you got to go swimming with Emma, and Silent Disco afterwards, so there's, you know, you had a lot of questions, you know, so there might be questions that you want to just ask the other students, even about traveling afterwards or whatever. So they're there for you. They're your older sisters, brothers. Yeah? Wow. Okay.
hey guys, we'll see you at the airport. We're so.
Literally, I have so much clothes.
She was definitely the cool kid at school back then.
I mean,